There is a question hidden inside one of the most common ancestry claims in the United States, and almost nobody who makes the claim has ever thought to ask it. More than 25 million Americans claim English ancestry. It is one of the oldest and largest heritage claims in the United States, running back through the founding colonists, the Mayflower, and centuries of migration across the Atlantic. To be of English descent is, for many Americans, to be connected to the deepest layer of the country's European history. But the question of what English ancestry actually is, genetically at its foundation, turns out to be far more complicated and far more violent than the word English suggests, because the English as a people were created by a replacement event. And the ancient DNA has now shown that it happened not once, but in waves, each one overwriting a significant portion of what came before. The people who think of English ancestry as the bedrock layer of their family history, the oldest, most settled, most continuous part of who they are in fact connected to one of the most repeatedly overwritten populations in Europe. The English did not emerge slowly from a single ancient root. They were built and rebuilt by successive migrations that each arrived, fought, settled, and merged into what came before, until the result was a population that carried the genetic signature of 4 distinct peoples layered one on top of another. The story the DNA tells is not the gentle one of gradual cultural evolution that many people imagine when they think of English heritage. It is a story of arrival, displacement, and absorption repeated across 6 centuries, each wave leaving its mark in the genomes of the people who live in England today and in the millions more around the world who descend from them. To understand who the English are, you have to start before England existed. The island of Britain, in the early centuries of the first millennium AD, was inhabited by Britons, Celtic-speaking peoples who had lived there for thousands of years, descended from the Bronze Age populations that had themselves replaced the Neolithic builders of Stonehenge. When Rome conquered Britain in 43 AD, it ruled over these Celtic Britons for nearly 4 centuries without significantly replacing them. The Romans built roads, cities, and walls, imposed their administration and their Latin language on the elite, and drew Britain into the economy of a continental empire. But the genetic evidence shows that Roman rule, for all its visible transformation of the landscape, left remarkably little mark on the population itself. The legions garrisoned in Britain came from across the empire, but they did not replace the native Britons. When the imperial administration withdrew in the early 5th century to deal with crises closer to Rome, the cities decayed, the roads fell into disrepair, the coinage stopped circulating, and Roman Britain collapsed into a patchwork of small territories ruled by local British kings. And into that vacuum came something that would transform the island permanently, not from the south, where Rome had come from, but from across the North Sea to the east. Beginning around 450 AD, Germanic-speaking peoples from across the North Sea, the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, originating in what is now northern Germany, the Netherlands, and Denmark, began arriving in eastern Britain. The traditional historical account, drawn largely from the writings of the British monk Gildas in the 6th century, and later the Northumbrian historian Bede in the 8th, described this as an invasion. Gildas, writing perhaps within living memory of the events, described the coming of the Saxons as a catastrophe visited upon the Britons with fire and slaughter, cities destroyed, and the native population driven from their homes. Bede writing later and with more distance, organized the story into the arrival of three distinct peoples, the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes, each settling in different parts of the island. Waves of Germanic warriors in this telling drove the native Britons westward into the mountains of Wales and the peninsula of Cornwall, seizing the most productive lowland farmland and establishing the kingdoms Wessex, Mercia, Northumbria, Kent, and East Anglia that would eventually combine into England. The very name England means land of the Angles, and the English language is a Germanic tongue, not a Celtic one, carrying almost nothing of the British language that preceded it. For decades, historians and archaeologists argued about whether this was a genuine population replacement or merely a cultural transformation, whether a relatively small Germanic elite had imposed their language and customs on a largely unchanged native population, or whether large numbers of Germanic people had actually migrated and displaced the Britons. The pottery and the place names and the burial styles could be read either way. The argument could not be resolved with archaeology alone. The ancient DNA resolved it, and it did so with a clarity that few archaeological debates ever achieve. A major study published in the journal Nature in 2022 analyzed the genomes of more than 400 individuals from across northwestern Europe, spanning the early medieval period. The results were definitive. In eastern England, the region where the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were strongest, the population of the early medieval period derived, on average, around 76% of its ancestry from continental northern European sources. The migration was not a small elite. It was a mass movement of people from the North Sea coast of the continent into eastern Britain, large enough to replace roughly 3/4 of the ancestry in the region within a few generations. The figure varied across the country. Some eastern sites showed continental ancestry exceeding 80%. Moving west and north, the proportion of surviving British ancestry rose. But across the core of what became England, the continental signal dominated. The study also found a striking pattern in how the ancestry was distributed by sex. The early continental migrants included substantial numbers of women, not just male warriors. That is the genetic signature of a settling population rather than a raiding army. Whole families and communities had crossed the North Sea, not just fighting men. This was migration in the fullest sense. People coming to stay, to farm, to raise children, to build a new society on land taken from the people who had lived there before. This was a genuine population replacement on a scale comparable to the Bronze Age steppe migration that had transformed Britain 2,500 years earlier. The native Britons were not simply ruled by a Germanic elite. In the east of the island, they were demographically overwhelmed. Their descendants survived in greater numbers toward the west, in Wales, in Cornwall, in the upland regions where the incoming Anglo-Saxons were slower to penetrate. But across the heartland of what became England, the genetic landscape was rewritten by people who had crossed the North Sea. The study revealed something else that complicated the simple invasion narrative. The replacement was not uniform, and it was not total. The incoming Anglo-Saxon population mixed with the surviving Britons rather than entirely eliminating them. Modern English people carry both ancestries, the Anglo-Saxon continental component and the older British Celtic component, in proportions that vary by region, and the mixing happened quickly. Within a few generations, the genetic evidence shows communities in which continental and native ancestry were thoroughly mixed, individuals with mixed descent buried side by side with those of purely continental or purely native origin, all participating in the same emerging Anglo-Saxon culture. One cemetery analyzed in the study contained individuals whose ancestry ranged across the entire spectrum, some entirely continental, some entirely British, and many in between, yet all buried with the same grave goods, in the same orientation, according to the same customs. Whatever conflict had accompanied the initial migration, within a few generations the descendants of conquerors and conquered were living, dying, and being buried as a single community. The genetic boundary between Britain and Anglo-Saxon dissolved even as the cultural identity of being Anglo-Saxon hardened into something that would define the island for the next 500 years. Then came the second wave. Beginning in the late 8th century, a new Germanic-speaking population began arriving in Britain, the Vikings. Norse and Danish raiders and settlers established control over large parts of northern and eastern England, the region that became known as the Danelaw. The ancient DNA shows their genetic contribution layered on top of the Anglo-Saxon and British foundation, particularly concentrated in the north and east, where Scandinavian settlement was densest. The English population absorbed another infusion of Northern European ancestry, closely related to, but distinct from the Anglo-Saxon component that had arrived 3 centuries earlier. Place names across northern and eastern England still carry the Norse imprint. Every town ending in by, Thorpe, or Thwaite marks a place where Scandinavian settlers established themselves. The DNA confirms what the map of place names had always suggested. The Vikings did not simply raid and leave. In large parts of England, they settled permanently and contributed their ancestry to the population that would become modern English people. The Viking presence in England was not a brief raiding episode. For nearly a century, much of England paid tribute to Scandinavian rulers, and for a period in the early 11th century, England was ruled by a Danish king, Canute the Great, who governed an empire spanning England, Denmark, and Norway. The Scandinavian influence on the English language was profound. Common English words such as sky, skin, egg, knife, window, they, them, and their entered the language from Old Norse during this period. The two Germanic populations, Anglo-Saxon and Scandinavian, were closely enough related that they could partially understand each other, and they merged into the population of late Anglo-Saxon England with relatively little friction once the initial violence of conquest had passed. And then in 1066, the final transformation, though this one was more political than genetic. The Norman conquest brought a new ruling elite from northern France, themselves descended from Vikings who had settled in Normandy a few generations earlier. The Normans replaced the Anglo-Saxon aristocracy almost entirely, transformed the language, the legal system, and the structure of English society, and left a permanent mark on English culture. But genetically, the Norman contribution to the general population was modest. They were a ruling class, not a mass migration. The deep genetic foundation of the English had already been laid by the Anglo-Saxon replacement and the Viking settlement that followed it. The Norman impact on the English language reflects the nature of the conquest. Where Norse had contributed everyday words exchanged between neighbors, Norman French contributed the vocabulary of power, law, and high culture, words like government, justice, court, parliament, beef, pork and venison, the language of rulers and their tables. layered over the Anglo-Saxon words of the people who worked the land and raised the animals. The English language itself became a record of the social hierarchy that the conquest created. Germanic words for the labor, French words for the luxury. What this means is that English ancestry, the heritage claimed by 25 million Americans, is not a single ancient thing. It is a sequence of replacements and migrations layered on top of each other. A Celtic British foundation, overwritten across the East by a mass Anglo-Saxon migration from the continental North Sea coast, layered again with Viking Scandinavian settlement, and finally capped by a Norman French ruling elite. The English were assembled over 6 centuries from the collision of at least 4 distinct populations. The Americans who trace their roots to England are connected to all of it, to the Britons who watched the Roman legions leave, to the Anglo-Saxons who crossed the North Sea and overwhelmed them, to the Vikings who came for plunder and stayed to farm, and to the Normans who took the throne in 1066. The word English describes the end product of one of the most thoroughly documented sequences of population replacement in European history. The English were never one people. They were the record of everyone who arrived and refused to leave. The Britons who watched Rome abandon them, the Anglo-Saxons who crossed a cold sea to take their land, the Vikings who came for silver and stayed for soil, and the Normans who seized the crown and rewrote the language of power. 4 peoples, 6 centuries, 1 name. The DNA remembers all of them, even when the people who carry it have forgotten. If you want more history that DNA is rewriting, subscribe to The Lost Blueprint. New discoveries every day.